Yeah, so thanks. I appreciate it. Pumped to be here for the Liftoff 2025. We're going to be talking for the next 30 minutes about scaling success, avoiding common traps, and building systems for growth. So a little bit about me and our company before we get started. Nolan Consulting Group started in 2004 by Brian and Kevin Nolan, two brothers. Kevin Nolan started Nolan Painting in 1976. Brian came from the kind of the corporate world, and they decided to team up in 2004. Fast forward to now, we work with around 150 different businesses, ranging in size from startup, someone who's just kind of getting going, to a couple $100,000 in revenue, to one approaching around 55 million a year in annual revenue. What we do for our businesses, for these businesses, changes depending on the level that they're at. Obviously, the way we would coach someone who's at 500,000 is very different than the way we would coach somebody at 20 or 30 million. But the one commonality is about we focus on getting business owners out of the hourglass. And when you're a small business owner, everything's running through you. That's kind of an obvious thing to tackle. As you scale to 5 million, 6 million, 7 million, you find that you just kind of get yourself stuck in hourglasses further and kind of further up the chain a little bit, until eventually, hopefully one day, you're just wearing the CEO, president hat. So we do that through helping them build their teams, helping them build organizational muscle, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I've been at the company since 2014, so just coming up on 10 years now. So I want to talk about this idea, this concept of feeling stuck. I would argue that every small business feels this way at times, where you just can't seem to break through, right? You're stuck at a certain revenue size. We could blame our people, that I don't have the right people on the bus with me. We could blame the market. I'm not in a big enough market to be scaling the way I want to scale. The economy, it's not a good economy right now, so that's why I'm not scaling. We'll say things to ourselves like, if I could just get to this level, I could just get to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, all my problems would be solved. I could hire this person, I could buy this, I could do this, I'd be good. And the funny thing is, when we work with clients, a lot of times they come to us and they are stuck. They're at this stuck place. Sometimes they're not, but most times they are. The first thing we do with them and with everyone else is we work on a primary aim and a 3-year vision. So the primary aim is personal. So where do I want to be? What does my life look like 5 years from now? We have them write it full on as if it's a diary entry, as if today is the day that you're writing about. You're talking about how you're interacting with your community, your family, your friends, your business, and then we boil that back to a 3-year vision. We need to understand their ideal state and where we're working with them towards. And a really fun exercise that we do is 3 years later, after we've been working with them, we'll go back and we'll read that vision. And oftentimes we'll read it and it'll be like a kind of moment, like, so I've achieved all the things I wanted to. I've hit my 3-year vision. Why don't I feel like I did? Why does it feel like I'm exactly where I was? The feeling hasn't changed. The numbers have changed. Maybe my day-to-day has changed, but the feeling hasn't. So why is that? So as we grow and as we generate more revenue, our business becomes bigger. We in turn develop new problems. So the more customers we work with, if we go from a $500,000 painting company to a $2 million painting company, you likely just 4x the amount of customers you work with. That means the amount of upset customers you work with just 4x. You have more employees to deal with. You have more people that are out there working for you. There's more vehicles in your fleet potentially that can break down, right? The problems only get bigger. Ideally, you have more people with you on your team to help disseminate those problems and help get them fixed, but the problems get bigger and bigger and bigger. So as you scale, your systems are going to fail. When you're at $1 million, you have certain systems in place. You have certain softwares that you use. You have a certain scheduling system. You have how often you do fleet maintenance, your system for that, how you communicate with your customers. When you get to 2 million or 3 million, I would argue that those systems you were using at 1 million are either they're extinct or they don't work anymore, and you're pushing up against the boundary of them. They have a capacity. So what we're finding is that there are certain plateaus, some commonalities where people get stuck in business, where you kind of can grow up to a certain point and then you get stuck and you're kind of pushing up against a wall. And in order to kind of push past these plateaus, you first need to be able to identify the systems that are failing, and then you got to go and figure out the solutions to those systems. So what we've kind of split up here is the different revenue sizes into 4 different plateaus. And everyone today was doing such a good job using this chat. I'm jealous. I'm going to try and get involved here, see how it goes. At each level, hit a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the chat if you're at that level of the ladder. So the first is going to be the $500K to $1 million ladder. So hit a 1 if you're there. The next kind of plateau is the 1 million to kind of $2.5 million area. So we're going to have a wide swath of range here, because depending on the market that you're in, type of business that you're in, right? If you're doing large commercial contracts versus smaller residential home owners repaints, $1 million and a $2 million business could be having the same problems, just different revenue sizes, right? So large, plus the market's different, right? The next is going to be a $2.5 to $5 million plateau. And then the last one is going to be kind of $5 million plus. Everything above 5 million is kind of at a similar, problems are similar, obviously, the bigger problems at times, but similar problems. So you got a lot of 1s, a couple of 0s, and no 0 was an option. Okay, so we're below 500K. That's great. Every business starts somewhere, right? At one point, Amazon had $0 in revenue, right? So that's not a bad thing. Everyone starts somewhere. So seeing a lot of 1s and 2s. Okay, so we're going to go through each of these. So we're going to touch on some common problems that we see at each of these levels, and then we're going to make some recommendations on what I would do if these are the problems that you're dealing with in order to push through these problems. So we've kind of categorized these 4 different revenue levels, and we've named them. So the first is called breaking through the ceiling. $1 million ceiling is a tough thing to break through. Even as inflation has only gotten higher, it still, for some reason, seems like that 1 million is still a hard thing to break through. I think I read something that 1 in 20 businesses will pass $1 million. So that's 5%. So 95% of all businesses will never grow past $1 million. And there's a reason for that. It's hard. And we'll talk about why. Then we get to the $2.5 million above range, with the 1 to 2.5 range. And that's where what we call is building a value-based business. A value-based business is one that no longer relies on that one individual, where you could kind of close your operations manual into a potential buyer, and they could kind of plug and play, right? That's what you're looking to do in the 1 to 2.5 million range. Then we have you at the $5 million range, 2.5 to 5, where you, as a business owner, is hopefully getting out of the hourglass. Previous to this 5, you likely were a pretty integral role. Maybe you were doing all the sales, you were doing all the field ops, things like that. 2.5 to 5 is where you kind of need to slide out and make sure you have people at all these other different seats on the bus. And then from 5 million on, it's building organizational muscle all the way down, from the top line all the way down to the bottom. These are 4 different categories that we're going to touch on here. So breaking through the ceiling. So you could call this, there are some zeros here, so below 500K, you could call this 0 to 1 million. That would apply here. So what are the common pain points that we see of a business this size? The first is going to be financial predictability, where it's kind of a fly by the seat of your pants financially. You don't really have set goals, production rates, sales rates. You've heard of the word gross profit before, but you're not quite sure what yours is and how to manipulate it. You tend to work off of the cash you have in the bank. If I have cash in the bank, I'm good. I ended the month with cash, I'm good. So this typically means you're running your books on a cash basis as opposed to an accrual basis, right? And a lot of times it's, I hope I can make it through this winter. Not really having a plan. The next would be not having a customer experience or a consistent customer experience, an ideal one. So what is your customer experience? Are you able to define it? Could you write it out in a couple sentences? Or are you focusing too much on the actual service you're providing, selling on price, and not understanding your differentiator? I know we have a lot of painters on here, probably some other trades too, but you live on Google in your area. There's a lot of people who claim to be the best painter around. What is going to be your differentiator? How are you going to differentiate yourself? Can you communicate that to your customer? So focusing too much on the product, not enough on the experience that people are receiving. And this one, I think, is like the one that I see all the time. To me, if you could pick one thing to push past 1 million, it's this one, where you don't have a number two. You're the only brain in the business. There's no VP. There's no, right hand. You don't have anybody. If you take a vacation, so does everybody else. The rest of the business doesn't operate. A good number two can tend to cover up a lot of other issues. Partnerships, if you ever come across painting companies or contracting companies that are partnerships, 50-50 or 60-40, they tend to push past 1 million relatively quickly. And it's for this reason. If you got two people that are really invested, you can cover up a lot of other things. So finding that number two is tough. So solutions that we recommend, number one is budgeting. So do you have a budget? I mean, a lot of people recommend having a budget, but what's the point? What's the so what? Do your behaviors change based off of what the budget says? Do you see the goal that you have for February coming up? And do you act differently as a result? So it's January 7th. Well, let's fast forward here 3 weeks. It's the end of the month, and you are $15,000 from hitting your monthly goal. Are you going, I got close this month, not too bad? Or are you going, I am $15,000 away. I know that based off of my numbers, that means I need to go on 6 estimates. I'm closing at 50%. I'm going to get 3 jobs. Are you letting them guide your behaviors? Too often we use the numbers at this size as a rear view mirror. How did we do? We need to start using them as a guiding light. The next will be job costing and benchmarking. Something that a lot of people talk about for good reason. You have to be aware of your sweet spot jobs. What jobs do you crush? If you are saying to yourself, I think we do well on this type of work. Yeah, we do well on this type of work, I'm pretty sure. That's not good enough. Not good enough. I need you to know things like we average over 50% gross profit on residential interiors. That's the kind of stuff you need to know, and you go after them as a result. And as important, knowing what your sweet spot jobs are not, knowing what's dragging you down. And an added benefit of job costing and benchmarking is you can tend to see which of your job leaders or crew leaders is doing the best, and you can reward them as such. Then we have customer communication, plan, and scripting. How are your people talking to your customers when you're not there? What's happening? You need people to know what customer experience you're looking to deliver and be able to do it without you being there. They all need the exact same experience. When you have raving fans, because you're getting the exact same experience every time, that's going to lead to more Google reviews. It's going to lead to more referrals. It doesn't happen based off of hope and by accident. And if it does, it takes a long time. You need to make it happen. How do you want your people communicating with your customers? And then last, identifying your number two. And if you don't have one, you don't have a farm team where you think you see somebody, this should be your number one priority. If you want to scale to 1.2, 3, you need a number two. You need someone that's thinking about the company on the weekend. Are any of your people thinking about the company on the weekend? Or are they just showing up to work at 7, 8, or 9 a.m. going, what do we have for today? Are you the only one that's losing sleep? There's this concept called time span that we talk a lot about in Nolan Consulting Group, where everyone is categorized based off of how far they think ahead. So your actions today, everything you're doing, how you're going about your day, are you doing it because it's going to benefit you today? Or are you doing it because it's going to benefit you next week or next month? The best number twos, and the way you might be able to find your number two, is somebody who can operate today based off of what they want to get done next week. They're going about their job today as if next week is today. And then obviously there's level 3 is months, and 4 is years. So try to find somebody that operates in a higher time span level. So these number twos can come in a lot of different roles. They could be a field supervisor, a sales rep, inside ops, or office manager. It's not so much the position that I would emphasize you need to get at this level. It's the mindset. It's the ownership thinking of finding that number two. Second is building a value-based business, the $1.5 to $2.5 million level here. First pain point, cash flow. So this is where we are sometimes doubling, tripling, quadrupling a business, right? If you used to be a $500,000 a year company, now you're doing $2 million a year, you just 4x'd your company size. Growth eats cash for breakfast. It sucks cash. In order to grow, you need tons of cash. All the money it took to start your business, times that by 4 or 5, and that's what it takes. So very often bootstrapping is the way that people grow. It's a popular method. It requires profit and it requires a tidy AR. The next is going to be growing a sales team. So there's a lot of people that are at this level in the $1 to $2.5 million level that are doing all the sales themselves. Owners have a superpower in sales. I like to say, there are some owners that do not have a sales profile, as we call it, that could sell $2 million a year without skipping a beat. They have a superpower. When a customer sees they're dealing with the owner, it's a different feeling. Growing a sales team, having a reliable 1 or 2 sales reps is the key here. Third, marketing and lead generation. Being mostly referral and repeat business will keep you stuck at that $1 to $2.5 million range. Not having a strong branding plan, not having a customer acquisition plan, not knowing your customer acquisition numbers, right? Hope is not an effective plan here. And then last is going to be field leadership, lack thereof. If there's problems in the field with customers, who's it coming to? Is it coming to you? Are you the chief firefighter? When there's a lack of field systems where people aren't thinking ahead, right? It's that level 2. They're not thinking about next week, what they should be doing today, prepare themselves for next week. That ends up with you coming in and saving the day too often. So solutions, AR collection process and cash flow. So specifically, if you're in commercial or any type of large contract work, having your AR be really tidy, having really solid terms is so important. A lot of times, painting companies will be in this like $1 million, 1.5 range, looking to break into commercial, and they'll land this whale of a project, $1 million commercial project. That will bankrupt your company if you do not have good collections process, if you do not have a good AR process. Who's accountable for the AR? Should be one person who's accountable for the AR. If somebody's over 30 days, 60 days, who am I coming to talk to you about that? Profit and cash are not the same thing. That $1 million whale project could be crazy profitable, but if I'm not getting that money for 60 days and my line of credit's tapped out, I might be going bankrupt. Then we have sales training. So do you have a process? When you get to 1 million, 2 million with the owner selling most of the work, there likely isn't a sales process. They're selling based off of personality and the fact that they're the owner. So could you hire a sales rep, tell them, here's our process, you're going to go out and run it. Next is going to be a formalized marketing strategy, knowing what your cost per lead is. Where do your customers live? Where's their attention? Do I know not so much physically live, like what zip codes they live, but where's their mind? How can I get in front of them? How can I bring them through the buying cycle of trust, try, like, and buy? And then we have job leader training. Cannot emphasize job leader training enough. The way you grow really profitably is being able to hand, everyone's online now, but back in the day, being able to hand a job folder to somebody at 9 a.m. on a Monday and get that folder back on Friday with a check in hand without you having to ever go out and visit that job. Now that's the exception. That's just not how every job goes, but you need people who can do that for you. And then you need to copy and paste that person. You need to get one person who can do that for you, and a second that can do that for you. And the only way you can do that is if you know what you're training them on. Too often we find these people that can run jobs because they have it, right? They have the right time span, they have the right intelligence. But if you have someone with the right attitude and the right smarts, you can train them on how to run your jobs. This is where you need to get to. All right, the next level. I'm blowing through this here because I got 10 more minutes. Getting out of the hourglass, 2.5 to 5. So I forget where it was, but $3 million tends to be like the next death nail in the coffin for companies. 1 million is a big one. Only 5% can get past $1 million. Then 3 million is huge. Because once you're past kind of the $2.5 to $3 million range, you as the owner kind of lose control over everything. You can't possibly touch everything. It's very difficult for one person to sell 3, 4, 5 million. So you're going to have other people selling. If you're selling, you have to have other people running your field. Now there are exceptions that prove the rule. I work with one company that's close to 10 million. They got 2 guys that are selling like 6 of it, right? So there are exceptions, but for the most part, this is kind of a real difficult point to be at. So the pain points, number 1, building a management team. Extremely talented individuals can grow their company single-handedly to 1, 2, 3 million, like we talked about. But to break past that, you need a team. If you don't have a management team, you likely won't grow too much farther past this $3, $4, $5 million level. You need people to filter your ideas through. You need people who will push back on you. Now, not a team of managers, management team. They all have that insomnia that they get around the business where they don't sleep on the weekends because they're worrying about the business. Next is going to be sales management. Sales management is a big one, whereas before you were doing the sales and it was one other person with you doing the sales. So it's kind of easy to manage one person. But what ends up happening here is when there's little to no sales management going on, there's not a lot of ride-alongs happening. There's not accountability around business development. There's not refinement of the sales process. It's focused on numbers. We're all so busy that I don't have time to ride along with you, right? Next is going to be employee development. You're not able to move people through your business. You have people that might come in at an apprentice level and they don't move up. You have a lack of leaders, particularly job leaders. Job leaders are, if you have good ones, hold on to them because they are what makes the field profitable. You have to have great job leaders. You have a way of developing job leaders. And then cascading culture and communication. So at this level, culture can begin to fracture. Oftentimes, if you're a company that has not gotten rid of the prima donnas yet, they can begin to suppress talent at this level. So prima donnas are people who are like, this company wouldn't be anywhere without me. No one likes working with them. They're a pain in the butt, but they're the best painter in the company or the best craftsman that you have. I can't imagine living without them. There's not many companies that are at $8, $9, or $10 million of business that have prima donnas scattered all over their field. It's pretty difficult. You can't be everywhere and control all the conversations at this size. So you have to get rid of these people that are degrading your culture and bring the right people up so that the culture is how you want it when you're not there. So solutions, management team development. So you have to find and grow your talent here. You need to put them through IDPs. We call them individual development plans. You need to find ways to incentivize them to stick around for the long haul. So there's deferred compensation plans, there's profit sharing, there's a lot of different ways besides ownership. If you don't want to get out of ownership, there's a lot of different other ways to keep these people invested in the long haul. On top of that, you need to give your key people actual decision-making authority. They need the authority that's commensurate with their responsibility level. There's nothing that will disengage somebody more. Let's say I'm an operations manager, but I don't have ultimate hire and fire authority for the team below me. But what am I even doing here? That is going to create disengagement in a second. You need to invest in the training of these people. You need to go on retreats with them, management team retreats. You need to hire a company to facilitate your annual planning meetings. You have got to get this team to be excellent and elite. Next, we have organizational accountability charts. Every single person in your company vows to show up to your company and go to the lowest ranking person there, the apprentice that was hired 2 days ago. I should be able to say, who's your boss? And they should be able to tell me exactly who their boss is. Everybody needs someone over top of them that cares about their long-term development and is pushing them. So in order to have that, you need a clear organizational chart with lines of accountability. Leaders lead individuals. Managers manage jobs. We need to lead individuals. There's this 12 requirements for full employee engagement that Gallup did. And 7 of the 8 of the 12 are leader-based, having somebody right above me, someone that has praised me in the last 7 days, someone that has told me what's expected of me, somebody who cares about my development. This is what job leaders do, right? Coming back to this job leader topic, we have great job leaders. Then we have sales manager roles. At this level, the $2.5 to $5 million level, you likely won't be able to hire a full-fledged sales manager. But we need someone that is engaged in the behaviors. So this might be you as the business owner. We need someone that is doing ride-alongs. We need someone that is holding people accountable to business development and prospecting, is making sure they're making the touches we need them to touch. We need someone who is making the hires for sales and training them and auditing the sales process. And then we need to foster and maintain your culture. So get rid of the prima donnas and allow for microcultures. So microcultures is this really cool thing. Everyone says we don't want subcultures, right? Microcultures are great. Every team in your company should have a microculture. They need to play within the values of your company, though. They can't be prima donnas who don't have the same company values, but they need to have their own kind of language, right? Some teams like to joke around and kind of beat each other up, right, with jokes. Other teams are very down to business and very work focused, and that's okay. There's this book by Marcus Buckingham. I'm blanking on the word. Oh, here it is. 9 Lies About Work. 9 Lies About Work by Marcus Buckingham. He says, lie number 1 is people care about what company they work for. They don't care about what company they work for. They care about what company they join. I'm joining Google because I heard about the great nap pods. But when I'm working with Google and I've been hired, I've been on my team 6 months later, do I care that I work for Google anymore? Or do I care about the team that I'm on? Care about who I'm working with? Do I care about my boss? If that's a bad microculture that I'm a part of at Google, they can have all the net pods in the world. Not going to matter to me. I'm leaving that company. Are you focused on being the best place to work? Are you tracking your employee experience the same way you're tracking your customer experience? Values matrix is a really great exercise where you chart out high skill and high values, and you chart people on it and see who falls in the low skill, low values quadrant, who falls in the high skill, low values quadrant. Those are your prima donnas. And the last, I don't think I saw any people in this category, but we'll hit it anyways because it's fun. Pain points of a $5 million plus company. Business planning is not a core process. No one owns it. Who owns business planning? Someone has to own it. Everyone's too focused on their roles and in their silos, push the ball forward here. Nothing is systematic about it. There's no continuous visualization happening. The president isn't really shining the light forward, right? The next will be diversification as a pain point. My market's been saturated. I might be an $8 million painting business in a town of 100,000 people. I may have saturated my customer base, and every customer acquisition could be costing me too much. And finally, we have high-level roles or lack thereof. So people in your high-level roles either don't exist because I don't have them, I'm performing too many of them, or they're not able to execute on the president's vision, or they're good technicians, right? I was a great bookkeeper in my company, and the Peter principle, I got promoted to CFO or controller, and they are very different things with very different time spans, like we talked about before. This can often be where when you're at the $5, $6, $7 million mark, where the people who got you here can get you there. The whole Peter principle, we've promoted them past where they're able to get us. Now, with the right investment in IDPs with them, hopefully that doesn't happen. So how do we do this? How do we solve for these? So recruiting and maintaining top talent, putting the right people in the right seats. The next is going to, so that's your controller, your sales manager, your ops manager. Then we have following a planning process. We use the cascading planning process here at NCG. And then figuring out symbiotic services or tapping different markets. So branching out into feeder services, expanding your market and utilizing your customer base. So I have all these customers for painting, gutter business, and use that entire market, that entire customer list for my gutter business, or am I expanding into different markets? So for every pain point, there's a system with a system implementation that unlocks growth, scalability. Questions?